The phone pressed against my ear felt heavier than ever as I clutched it with trembling fingers. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the background, marking each second of my growing unease. "Mom," Daniel's voice trembled through the static. "Something isn't right. Where's Vanessa?" I glanced at the ceiling where I had just heard the shower running moments ago. The pipes in our old Austin home always groaned when someone turned on the upstairs bathroom. "She's here, honey. She told me herself she was taking a shower before dinner." But his next words cut through me like a blade. "Impossible, Mum. I'm holding her passport. She just boarded my flight to New York. I'm looking right at her." The walls around me seemed to collapse. My chest tightened as if the air had been stolen from the room. And before I could even think of a response, before I could breathe, came the unmistakable sound of footsteps from behind me. Slow, deliberate, and a voice. Soft, familiar, far too real. "Mum, who's on the phone?" I froze, my back to the kitchen doorway, the phone still pressed against my ear. Daniel's confused breathing echoed through the line as he waited for my response. "Mom," the voice behind me repeated. "Is everything okay?" I turned slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. There stood Vanessa, my oldest son Nathan's wife, wrapped in a bathrobe, her dark hair dripping wet from the shower, her expression one of innocent concern. It's Daniel," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. "Oh, tell him I said hi." Vanessa smiled, moving toward the refrigerator with casual ease. "I'm starving. Is Nathan home from work yet?" I stared at her, unable to reconcile the woman before me with Daniel's words. "Daniel," I spoke into the phone, "I need to call you back." "Mum, don't hang up." His voice cut off as I lowered the phone. "Is something wrong?" Vanessa asked, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. "You look like you've seen a ghost." My mind raced through possibilities. A mistake? A look-alike? Had Daniel been confused? "No," I said, attempting a smile. "Everything's fine. Just military business." The lie felt heavy on my tongue. In 63 years of life, I'd never faced such an impossible situation. Vanessa shrugged and bit into the apple. "I'm going to get dressed. Nathan texted that he's bringing Liam home from soccer practice soon." I nodded mechanically, watching as she left the kitchen, her bare feet padding softly across the tile floor. The moment she was out of sight, I grabbed my phone and texted Daniel, "She's here, in my kitchen. Just got out of the shower." "I don't understand." His response came seconds later. "Take a photo if you can." Discreetly, I'm still watching her board this plane. The request seemed absurd, yet nothing about this situation made sense. I moved through the house in a daze, clutching my phone like a lifeline. When I reached the stairs, I could hear Vanessa humming in the guest bedroom, the room she and Nathan used when they stayed with me while their home was being renovated. I lifted my phone, opened the camera app and waited. Minutes later, Vanessa emerged, now dressed in jeans and a blue sweater. She smiled at me as she descended the stairs. "I thought I'd set the table for dinner," she said. "Liam will be hungry after practice." I nodded, then pretended to check something on my phone while quickly snapping a photo as she passed me. I sent it to Daniel immediately, my hands shaking. His response came 3 minutes later, the longest 3 minutes of my life. "Mum, I'm looking at her right now on this plane. Same clothes she wore this morning when she left our house. This is impossible." I sank onto the bottom stair, clutching the railing for support. How could Vanessa be in 2 places at once? I'd known her for 7 years, ever since Nathan brought her home to meet me. She was beautiful, charming, with a smile that lit up rooms. She'd given me my only grandchild. Sweet, curious Liam. She was my daughter-in-law, part of our small, tight-knit family. Or was she? "Evelyn?" Vanessa's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood in the doorway, concern etched across her face. "You seem upset. Is everything all right with Daniel?" I forced myself to meet her gaze. Those familiar brown eyes looked back at me, the same eyes I'd seen fill with tears at Nathan and Vanessa's. Wedding? The same eyes that had watched Liam take his first steps in this very house. "Everything's fine," I lied, rising shakily to my feet. "Just tired, I suppose." The sound of a car pulling into the driveway saved me from further explanation. Moments later, the front door burst open and 7-year-old Liam raced in, his soccer cleats leaving muddy prints on my hardwood floor. "Grandma scored 2 goals today," he announced triumphantly, throwing his arms around my waist. I hugged him tightly, grateful for his presence, an anchor in a world suddenly turned upside down. Over Liam's head, I saw Nathan enter, briefcase in one hand, Liam's soccer bag in the other. "Hi, Mom," he said, leaning to kiss my cheek. Then he turned to Vanessa. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" "Just fine," Vanessa replied with a smile. "Quiet, caught up on some reading, took a shower." I watched Nathan nod, accepting her words without question. How many times had he done this? How many times had I? As Vanessa took Liam upstairs to clean up before dinner, Nathan caught my expression. "Mom, you okay?" I wanted to tell him everything, about Daniel's call, about the impossibility unfolding before us. But what if I was wrong? What if there was a simple explanation? "I'm fine," I said instead, "just wondering when Daniel will get leave next." As we moved to the kitchen to prepare dinner, my phone buzzed with another message from Daniel. "Sending you something. Don't open until you're alone." That night, after Nathan, Vanessa, and Liam had gone to sleep upstairs, I sat alone in my darkened living room and opened the attachment Daniel had sent. It was a video, grainy airport security footage showing a woman who was unmistakably Vanessa boarding a plane, timestamp matching exactly when Daniel had called me. The same time Vanessa had been showering in my upstairs bathroom. My hands trembled as I played the video again and again. There was no mistake. The woman on the screen was Vanessa. The same walk, the same haircut, the same mannerisms, but so was the woman sleeping upstairs. I sat in the darkness, listening to the old house settle around me, wondering what other secrets it held. Tomorrow, Daniel would land in New York. Tomorrow, I would need to face the truth, whatever that might be. And it terrified me. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as I mechanically prepared. Breakfast, my mind still processing the impossible. I hadn't slept, instead spending the night cataloguing every memory of Vanessa, searching for clues I might have missed. Had there been signs, inconsistencies, moments that should have triggered suspicion? The coffee maker gurgled, filling the kitchen with its rich aroma as footsteps descended the stairs. Nathan appeared first, already dressed for work in a crisp button-down shirt and slacks. "Morning, Mum," he said, pouring himself coffee. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I admitted, pushing a plate of scrambled eggs toward him. "Big day at the firm?" Nathan nodded, his focus already drifting to his phone. "2 client meetings and a presentation. Might be late tonight." My son, responsible, hard-working, trusting, perhaps too trusting. Studied his face, wondering if he had any suspicions about his wife. Had he noticed anything unusual? Any unexplained absences or strange behaviors? "Where's Vanessa?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Still sleeping. She seemed tired last night." I nodded, unsure how to proceed. My phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel. "Flight landed in NYC. Following her. Will call when I can." My stomach twisted with anxiety. Following who? The woman he believed to be Vanessa? While the real Vanessa, or someone who looked exactly like her, slept upstairs in my home. "You okay, Mom?" Nathan's voice pulled me back to the present. "Fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just worried about Daniel." Nathan frowned. "Is he okay? You've been acting strange since his call yesterday." Before I could respond, Liam bounded into the kitchen, his school uniform already rumpled. "Grandma, can I have pancakes?" "I already made eggs, sweetie," I said, grateful for the interruption. "But Thursday is pancake day," Liam protested, climbing onto a stool at the counter. "Thursday," I echoed, confused. "Honey, it's Tuesday." Liam shook his head emphatically. "Mom said it was Thursday. She laid out my Thursday clothes." Nathan and I exchanged glances. "It's definitely Tuesday, buddy," Nathan said gently. "You have math today, remember?" A subtle unease crept over me. A simple mistake, or something more. Before I could contemplate further, Vanessa appeared in the doorway, dressed in yoga pants and a loose t-shirt. "Good morning, everyone," she said, moving to the coffee maker. I watched her pour her coffee, adding, "A splash of cream and 2 sugars." Had she always taken her coffee that way? I couldn't remember. "Mum, tell Grandma it's Thursday," Liam said, his mouth full of eggs. Vanessa laughed, a light, musical sound. "No, silly, it's Tuesday. Where did you get that idea?" Liam frowned. "But you said—" "Hurry up with breakfast," Nathan interrupted. "We need to leave in 15 minutes. As they ate, I observed Vanessa carefully. She moved with confidence through my kitchen, knowing exactly where everything was kept, She kissed Nathan goodbye, reminded Liam to brush his teeth, and loaded the dishwasher without asking where anything went. Yet something felt off. Subtle discrepancies I couldn't quite place. The way she ruffled Liam's hair instead of kissing his forehead. The way she leaned away, slightly when Nathan pulled her close. After they left, Vanessa settled on the couch with a book. I thought I'd stay here today, if that's okay. Our contractor is working on the master bathroom, and the noise drives me crazy. Of course, I said, sitting across from her. I always enjoy the company. She smiled, a perfect smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. My phone buzzed again. Daniel had sent a photo. Vanessa entering a high-rise apartment building in Manhattan, timestamp 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time. It was 8:23 a.m. in Austin. The woman in the photo wore sunglasses and a camel coat I recognized. I'd given it to Vanessa last Christmas. I glanced up. The Vanessa on my couch wore a casual outfit, her hair pulled into a messy bun. She turned a page in her book, seemingly unaware of my scrutiny. "What are you reading?" I asked. She lifted the book to show me the cover. "Just something I found on your shelf. I hope you don't mind." It was a romance novel I'd never seen before. I was certain it hadn't been on my shelf. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. She entered apartment 1502. Doorman greeted her by name. Asked about security footage. Building belongs to Raymond Garfield, CEO of Garfield Industries. The name meant nothing to me, but a quick search revealed Raymond Garfield was a 67-year-old widower, one of the wealthiest men in New York City. "Everything okay?" Vanessa asked, noticing my expression. "Just Daniel," I said. "He landed safely." She nodded, returning to her book. "That's good." I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending to start lunch preparations while texting Daniel back. "She's still here, reading on my couch. What's happening?" His response was immediate. "I don't know, but I'm staying here. Something isn't right. Has she mentioned anything about New York? About Garfield?" "No," I typed. "Nothing." The next few hours passed in a strange domestic ballet. Vanessa helped me prepare lunch, talked about Liam's upcoming school play, discussed renovation plans for their house. She was pleasant, helpful, familiar, yet I found myself cataloguing small differences. The way she held her fork, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear with her left hand instead of her right. Daniel continued sending updates throughout the day. The Vanessa in New York hadn't left the apartment building. At 3:30 p.m., my Vanessa announced she needed to pick up Liam from school. "I thought Nathan was doing that today," I said, recalling their morning conversation. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face before she smiled. "You're right. I forgot. Pregnancy brain, I guess." My heart stopped. "Pregnancy?" Her eyes widened slightly. "Did I say pregnancy?" "I meant project brain. I've been helping Nathan with a project for his firm. It's taking up a lot of mental space." She laughed it off, but I'd seen it, that moment of confusion, of improvisation, and Daniel's latest text confirmed my growing suspicion. "She's still here, going to dinner with Garfield tonight. Called Nathan's office. He has no idea she's in New York." As evening approached, my dread deepened. Nathan brought Liam home, and we shared another meal together, the normalcy of it. Almost unbearable against the backdrop of my churning thoughts. Who was this woman at my table? If she wasn't Vanessa, who was she? And if the woman in New York was the real Vanessa, what did that mean for my son? For my grandson? After dinner, as Vanessa helped Liam with his homework, I slipped into the guest bedroom. I didn't know what I was looking for until I found it. A small leather journal, tucked between the mattress and box spring. With trembling hands I opened it. Inside, written in handwriting I didn't recognize, Day 6. They suspect nothing. Garfield transaction almost complete. V says another week max. I nearly dropped the journal, my heart pounding in my chest. Whatever was happening, it was no mistake, no coincidence. It was deliberate, planned, and my family was caught in the middle of it. I replaced the journal exactly as I'd found it, my hands trembling. The house felt different now, familiar walls suddenly harboring secrets. When I returned to the living room, Liam was showing Vanessa, or whoever she was, his science homework. "Look, Mom, I got an A on my planet project." His innocent face beamed with pride. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," she replied, her smile. Perfect, too perfect. I watched them from the doorway, this woman seamlessly playing the role of mother to my grandson, Was she an imposter? A twin? The questions multiplied in my mind like a virus, each one spawning more uncertainties. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Daniel had sent another message. Having dinner at table next to them. She's different, Mum. Laughing too loud, touching his arm. She introduced herself as Vanessa Carter to the waiter, using our name. I felt sick. Nathan was in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, completely unaware that his world was about to shatter. I needed proof, something concrete, before destroying everything he believed in. Bedtime, Liam, Nathan called from the kitchen. School tomorrow. Can Mom read me a story tonight? Liam asked, gathering his books. The woman beside him hesitated for a fraction of a second. Actually, I have a terrible headache. Would you mind if Grandma reads to you instead? I'd be happy to, I said, studying her reaction. Relief flickered across her features. Thanks, Evelyn. I might take some aspirin and lie down. As I followed Liam upstairs, another text arrived from Daniel. She just excused herself to the bathroom. Taking pictures of documents from Garfield's briefcase. This is insane. I tucked Liam into bed in the spare room he always used at my house, my mind racing as I read him his favorite story. Halfway through, he interrupted me. Grandma? Is Mom sick? The question caught me off guard. She just has a headache, sweetie. Why? Liam fidgeted with his blanket. She's different. Sometimes she doesn't remember stuff. Like yesterday, she couldn't find my favorite cereal. It's always in the same place. My heart ached. Even a 7-year-old had noticed the inconsistencies. And last week, he continued, his small voice growing softer, she didn't remember our special handshake, the one we made up when I was 5. I kissed his forehead, promising everything would be all right. A promise I wasn't sure I could keep. When Liam finally drifted to sleep, I crept downstairs and found Nathan alone in the living room, scrolling through emails on his laptop. Where's Vanessa? I asked. Went to bed early. Said she wasn't feeling well. He looked up, concern etching lines around his eyes. Mom, is everything okay? You've been acting strange all day. I hesitated, weighing my options. Should I tell him what I suspected? Show him Daniel's messages? The journal I'd found? Nathan, I began carefully, have you noticed anything different about Vanessa lately? He frowned. Different how? Small things, habits, preferences, the way she interacts with Liam. Nathan closed his laptop. Mum, what are you getting at? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Daniel. I excused myself to the kitchen to answer. Mom, his voice was urgent. I followed them back to Garfield's apartment. She's staying there. He paused. They're definitely not just business associates. My stomach knotted. Daniel, I found a journal, hidden in the guest bedroom. Whoever this woman is, she's been keeping notes. I'm catching the first flight home tomorrow. Don't confront her yet. We need to understand what's happening first. I agreed and hung up, only to find Nathan standing in the kitchen doorway. Mom, what's going on? His voice was firm. That was Daniel, wasn't it? You two have been texting all day. Is there something I should know? I met my son's gaze, seeing the mixture of concern and growing suspicion in his eyes. I couldn't lie to him, not completely. Daniel saw something concerning in New York. We're trying to make sense of it. What does that have to do with Vanessa? The question hung between us. I searched for words that wouldn't devastate him. Nathan, I think we should wait until Daniel gets here tomorrow. He can explain everything he's seen. Seen what, Mom? His voice rose slightly. You're scaring me. I reached for his hand. I'm sorry. Honey, I don't want to jump to conclusions. Let's just talk in the morning, okay? Reluctantly, he nodded, though I could see the worry had planted itself firmly in his mind. As he headed upstairs, I sent one final text to Daniel. Be careful. Come home safely. That night was the longest of my life. I sat in my darkened living room, listening to every creak and groan of the house, wondering if the woman upstairs was awake too. Was she reporting to someone? To the real Vanessa? What was their plan? And most terrifyingly, what would they do if they realized we suspected something? Morning arrived with grey skies and a steady drizzle that matched my mood. I dozed off in my armchair sometime before dawn and awoke to the sound of movement in the kitchen. My back protested as I straightened. Momentarily disoriented, the woman who might not be Vanessa stood at the stove making pancakes. Liam sat at the counter, happily drawing on a placemat. Morning, Mom, she said brightly. Coffee's ready. Nathan already left for an early meeting. I poured myself a cup, noting how she'd prepared it exactly how I liked, light cream, no sugar. Whoever she was, she knew our routines intimately. "Grandma, look, I'm drawing our family," Liam announced, holding up his artwork. Stick figures labeled Dad, Mom, me, and Grandma. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, my throat tight with emotion. As we ate breakfast, I received a text from Daniel. "Boarding now, land at 11:45. The woman here is definitely leaving with Garfield on his private jet to Paris this afternoon. She has no idea." "I'm watching." My heart raced. Today was the day we'd get answers. "Any plans for today?" I asked casually. She wiped Liam's mouth with a napkin. "I thought we'd go to the park if the rain stops. Then I need to run some errands." "I could watch Liam while you go," I offered, hoping to keep him safe with me. She hesitated. "Actually, I promised him ice cream. Maybe we could all go together." Was she ensuring I couldn't speak privately with Nathan? Or was I becoming paranoid? The morning passed slowly. The rain continued, canceling the park plans. Instead, we played board games with Liam, the forced normalcy straining my nerves to breaking point. I watched her roll dice, move pieces, laugh at appropriate moments, a perfect performance of motherhood. By 11 o'clock, I was checking my watch every few minutes, counting down to Daniel's arrival. I'd texted Nathan to come home for lunch, an unusual request that he'd questioned but ultimately agreed to. At 11:30, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Isabella. I know you found my journal. Please don't tell her. I'll explain everything. I'm not trying to hurt your family." I stared at the message, confusion washing over me. Isabella? Who was Isabella? Before I could process this new development, the doorbell rang. Liam jumped up to answer it, but I gently held him back. "Let me get it, sweetheart," I said, my heart pounding. I opened the door to find Daniel on my porch, still in his Air Force uniform, his face grim with determination. Behind him stood a police officer. "Mom," Daniel said, embracing me briefly. "Where is she?" "Daniel!" Liam shouted, running to hug his uncle. The woman who claimed to be Vanessa appeared in the hallway, her expression shifting from welcome to alarm when she saw the officer. "Daniel," she said, her voice faltering. "What's going on? Why is there a police officer?" Daniel fixed her with a cold stare. "I think you know exactly what's going on, Isabella." A name hung in the air like smoke. Liam looked between the adults, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice trembled. "I'm Vanessa." Daniel stepped forward. "No, you're not. The real Vanessa is currently at JFK Airport, preparing to board a private jet to Paris with Raymond Garfield. I have photos, videos, and eyewitness accounts." Nathan's car pulled into the driveway at that moment, and I felt a rush of both relief and dread. How would he react to this confrontation? "Liam," I said quietly, "why don't you go upstairs and play with your tablet for a bit?" "But I want to stay with Uncle Daniel," he protested. "Go upstairs, buddy," Daniel said gently. "We'll play later, I promise." Reluctantly, Liam climbed the stairs, glancing back at us with confusion in his eyes. The front door opened and Nathan stepped in, freezing at the sight of Daniel and the police officer. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice tight. "Mom? Daniel?" The woman, Isabella, began to tremble visibly. "Nathan, please," Daniel cut her off. "This woman is not your wife, Nathan. She's been impersonating Vanessa while the real Vanessa is in New York with a man named Raymond Garfield." Nathan's face drained of color. "What? That's ridiculous. This is Vanessa, my wife." "No," Daniel insisted, pulling out his phone. "This is your wife." He showed Nathan a series of photos. Vanessa entering an upscale restaurant, Vanessa laughing with an older man, Vanessa kissing him in the back of a limousine. Nathan staggered backward. This is some kind of mistake, a look-alike, a coincidence." "It's not," Daniel said firmly, "and Officer Martinez is here because identity theft is a federal crime." The woman's composure finally cracked. She sank onto the bottom stair, her hands covering her face. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she whispered. "Who are you?" I asked, finding my voice at last. She lowered her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My name is Isabella Rhodes. I'm Vanessa's twin sister." The revelation struck like lightning. Twins? How had we never known? "Vanessa doesn't have a sister," Nathan protested. "She's an only child. She told me her parents died when she was young. She grew up in foster care." "Half of that is true," Isabella said quietly. Our parents did die, but we were separated. Vanessa was adopted by a wealthy family. I stayed in the system. The officer stepped forward. Ma'am, I need to see some identification. With shaking hands, Isabella reached into her pocket and produced a wallet. She handed over an ID card that confirmed her identity. Isabella Rhodes, born on the same date as Vanessa, but with a different address, a small apartment in East Austin. I don't understand, Nathan said, his voice hollow. How long has this been happening? How long have you been pretending to be my wife? Isabella couldn't meet his eyes. Off and on for about 3 years. At first it was just for a day or two when she needed to be somewhere else. Then the periods got longer. 3 years, Nathan repeated, disbelief etched on his face. That's impossible. I would have known. Would you? Daniel asked gently. You work long hours. You travel for business. And they're identical twins. I thought of all the small inconsistencies I'd noticed just in the past 2 days, things that seemed insignificant in isolation, but formed a pattern when viewed together. What about Liam? Nathan demanded, his voice breaking. Has my son been living with a stranger? Has he been calling you Mom without knowing the truth? Isabella's tears fell faster. Liam knows me. I've been part of his life since he was 4. I love him like he's my own. But he's not yours, Nathan shouted, his control finally shattering. He's Vanessa's son, my son. Where is Vanessa now? I asked Daniel, trying to diffuse the tension. Daniel checked his phone. Her flight to Paris should be taking off soon. I have a friend at JFK keeping an eye on things. Officer Martinez had been taking notes. We need to contact the authorities in New York immediately. If she's leaving the country, we need to stop that flight. As he stepped outside to make calls, I turned to Isabella. Why? Why would Vanessa do this? She has a husband, a son, a beautiful life. Isabella wiped her tears. It wasn't enough for her. It never has been. When we reconnected 5 years ago, she was already restless. Then she met Raymond at a charity event Nathan couldn't attend. He was wealthy, powerful, exciting. She became obsessed with him. And you agreed to help her cheat on her husband? Daniel's disgust was palpable. She's my sister, Isabella said simply. The only family I have. She promised. She'd help me start over. Give me enough money to finally have security. All I had to do was fill in occasionally. Occasionally became permanently, I observed. Isabella nodded. The past 3 months. I've been here more than she has. Raymond wanted her in New York. They're planning to move to his villa in France. What about Liam? Nathan asked, his voice breaking again. Was she just going to abandon her son? The silence that followed was answer enough. Nathan sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Officer Martinez returned. We've contacted the authorities in New York, but the jet has already departed. They're sending the information to Interpol. So she's gone, Nathan said flatly. She's really gone. I moved to my son's side, placing a hand on his shoulder. The pain radiating from him was almost tangible. Isabella stood awkwardly by the stairs. I should go. I've caused enough damage. You're not going anywhere, Officer Martinez said firmly. You're still looking at charges of identity theft and fraud. Wait, Nathan said suddenly. Liam. What do I tell Liam? How do I explain that his mother has abandoned him, that the woman he thought was his mother sometimes wasn't? The question hung in the air, impossible to answer adequately. How do you explain such a betrayal to a child? Daniel's phone rang, interrupting the heavy silence. He answered, listened intently, then looked at us with surprise. They stopped the plane, he said. Vanessa is being detained at JFK. A wave of emotions crashed over me. Relief, anger, vindication. Beside me, Nathan remained motionless, as if the news couldn't penetrate his shock. What happens now? I asked no one in particular. Officer Martinez answered, both women will face questioning. Given the evidence, they'll likely face criminal charges. And Liam, Nathan whispered. I squeezed his shoulder. He has us, honey. His father, his grandmother, his uncle. We'll help him through this. As if summoned by our conversation, Liam appeared at the top of the stairs. Dad, why is everyone so serious? Is Uncle Daniel in trouble? 5 pairs of eyes turned to the innocent child who had no idea his world had just imploded. Isabella made a small, wounded sound in her throat. No one's in trouble, buddy, Daniel said, managing a smile. Come on down. I think we need to have a family talk. As Liam descended, I caught Isabella's gaze. Despite everything, I saw genuine love for my grandson in her eyes. The situation was more complex than simple villains and victims. A tangled web of deception, manipulation, and misplaced loyalty that had ensnared us all. Nathan stood, straightening his shoulders with visible effort. Whatever came next, we would face it together, as a family. Broken, betrayed, but still standing. The kitchen was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Nathan sat at the table, his hands wrapped around a coffee mug that had long gone cold. Liam was upstairs with Daniel, who was doing his best to explain the unexplainable to a 7-year-old boy whose world had just been turned inside out. Isabella sat across from Nathan, her handcuffed wrists resting awkwardly on the table. Officer Martinez stood by the doorway, his presence a reminder of the legal implications that would follow this family tragedy. I moved between them, making fresh coffee none of us would probably drink, desperate for something normal to do in this abnormal situation. "When did you first meet Vanessa?" Nathan finally asked, breaking the heavy silence. Isabella looked up, her face, Vanessa's face, etched with guilt and sadness. 3 years ago. She found me through a DNA ancestry website I'd used to try to find our birth parents. 3 years, Nathan repeated, his voice hollow. Right after Liam turned 4. Isabella nodded. She showed up at my apartment in East Austin one day. Imagine opening your door to your exact reflection. I placed fresh mugs of coffee on the table, sitting beside my son. What did she want from you? At first, just to know me, to understand our connection. Isabella stared into her coffee. We were separated at birth. She was adopted by a wealthy family in Houston. I bounced through foster care until I aged out of the system. Our lives couldn't have been more different. Nathan's jaw tightened. When did this switch start happening? Isabella shifted uncomfortably. About a month after we met. She said she needed a weekend away to process everything. Asked if I would fill in for her. Just for 2 days. And you agreed? I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. She offered me $5,000. Isabella's eyes met mine, defiant yet ashamed. Do you know what that kind of money means to someone who's lived paycheck to paycheck their entire life? Who's never had health insurance? Who works 3 jobs just to make rent? I felt a pang of unwanted sympathy. What would I have done in her position? I thought it would be just that once, she continued. But then she called again a month later, then again. The requests became more frequent, longer stretches. Where was she going? Nathan asked, his voice barely audible. Isabella hesitated, glancing at Officer Martinez. Tell him, I urged. He deserves the truth. New York, to be with Raymond Garfield. She swallowed hard. They met at a charity gala she attended with you 2 years ago. He pursued her aggressively. Gifts, attention, promises. Nathan's face drained of color. I remember that gala. It was for the children's hospital. Vanessa insisted we go, even though it was the same weekend as my mother's birthday. I remembered, too, how disappointed I'd been when Nathan called to say they couldn't make it to my celebration dinner. How Vanessa had sent an elaborate flower arrangement instead. That's when it started, Isabella confirmed. After that, she began crafting excuses to spend time in New York. Client meetings, art exhibitions, spa. Weekends with friends. And you covered for her, Nathan said, anger finally breaking through his shock. Isabella nodded. I did. At first for the money then because I started to care about Liam, about you, about having a family, even if it wasn't really mine. How could you do this to my son? Nathan's voice cracked. He's just a child. I love Liam, Isabella insisted, tears streaming down her face. I know I had no right to, but I do. I've been more of a mother to him these past 3 years than Vanessa has. The cruel truth of her statement hung in the air between us. The past 3 months, I ventured. You've been here almost continuously, haven't you? She nodded. Vanessa has been with Raymond in New York, preparing for their move to France. She only came back for a day or two when absolutely necessary. And what was the end game here? Officer Martinez asked, speaking for the first time since we'd gathered in the kitchen. Was she planning to disappear permanently? Yes. Isabella's voice was barely a whisper. After Raymond finalized his divorce and certain business arrangements, they were planning to leave the country permanently next week. She hesitated, then continued. She was going to fake her death in a boating accident during a supposed solo vacation. Nathan made a strangled sound, somewhere between a gasp and a sob. And Liam, I asked, though I dreaded the answer. She said you would take care of him, Isabella replied, looking at Nathan, that he would be better off with you, that motherhood had been a mistake for her. The room fell silent again, each of us processing the enormity of Vanessa's betrayal, not just of Nathan as a husband, but of Liam as a son, of our entire family. Daniel appeared in the doorway. Liam's asleep finally, he said softly. I told him we'd talk more in the morning. What did you tell him? Nathan asked, looking up at his brother. The simplified truth, that the woman he thought was his. Mom sometimes wasn't, that there are two people who look exactly alike and that we're figuring things out. Daniel pulled out a chair and sat down. He's confused, but he's handling it better than I expected. Kids are resilient, I murmured, thinking of my grandson's sweet face, how innocent he was in all of this. Officer Martinez's phone rang, breaking the moment. He stepped into the hallway to answer it, returning a minute later with a grim expression. That was my captain. The authorities in New York have detained Vanessa Rhodes and Raymond Garfield. They're being held for questioning. Initial charges include identity fraud, conspiracy, and possibly financial crimes related to Garfield's business dealings. What happens now? I asked. We'll need formal statements from all of you. Ms. Rhodes here, he nodded toward Isabella, will need to come to the station. There will be charges, though the extent of them depends on a number of factors, including her cooperation. And Vanessa. Nathan's voice was flat. She'll be extradited back to Texas once the New York authorities are finished with their investigation. Nathan nodded mechanically, then turned to Isabella. I should hate you, he said quietly. For the deception, for the lies, but I don't know who to hate more. You for pretending to be my wife, or my actual wife for abandoning us and making it necessary. Isabella looked down at her handcuffed hands. I understand if you hate me. What I did was unforgivable, regardless of my reasons. The problem is, Nathan continued, his voice strained, Liam loves you. The version of his mother he's known for the past 3 years, the one who attended his school plays, who knows which stuffed animal he needs to sleep with, who cuts the crusts off his sandwiches just the way he likes. That's been you, hasn't it? She nodded, tears falling onto the table. Yes, most of the time. A terrible silence fell over the kitchen as we all confronted the painful reality. The woman who had deceived us had in many ways been a better mother to Liam than his biological one. I should go, Officer Martinez said quietly. Ms. Rhodes needs to be processed and it's getting late. As he helped Isabella to her feet, she turned to me. I'm sorry, Evelyn, I never meant to hurt your family. I just wanted to belong somewhere. Her words stayed with me long after. Officer Martinez had led her away, long after Nathan had gone upstairs to check on Liam, long after Daniel had settled into the guest room for the night. I sat alone in my darkened living room, thinking about family, about belonging, about the desperate measures people will take to find connection. I thought about Vanessa, who had everything, a loving husband, a beautiful son, a supportive extended family, and had thrown it all away for wealth and excitement. And I thought about Isabella, who had nothing but seized the opportunity to experience family, even if through deception. By morning I knew the story would break. There would be media attention, legal proceedings, painful conversations, but for now, in the quiet darkness, I allowed myself to grieve for what my family had lost, and for what we would have to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of police interviews, legal consultations, and endless cups of coffee. Nathan took leave from work, unable to focus on architectural designs while his personal life crumbled around him. Daniel extended his stay, his steady military presence a grounding force for all of us. And Liam, sweet, resilient Liam, asked questions that broke our hearts with their innocent complexity. So I have 2 mums, he'd asked the morning after the revelation, sitting at my kitchen table with chocolate milk and pancakes I'd made in a desperate attempt at normalcy. Not exactly, buddy, Nathan had replied, choosing his words carefully. You have 1 mom, Vanessa, and then there's Isabella, who looks exactly like your mom because they're twins. But Isabella was pretending to be mom sometimes. Yes. Liam had considered this, his small face scrunched in concentration. The times when mom was different, nicer, more patient, that was Isabella. Nathan had looked stricken, unable to respond. It was Daniel who'd stepped in. Sometimes people can act differently on different days, Liam. But yes, sometimes when you thought it was your mom, it was actually Isabella. "I like those days better," Liam had whispered, and the simple honesty of his statement had nearly undone me. 1 week after the night that had shattered our world, I sat in the visitor's room of the Travis County Correctional Complex, waiting for Isabella Rhodes. Nathan had been reluctant about my visit, but I needed answers that only she could provide. When she entered, I barely recognized her. Gone was the polished appearance of Vanessa Rhodes. In its place was a woman with her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing standard-issue orange, her face free of makeup. Yet somehow, she looked more authentic than she ever had pretending to be my daughter-in-law. "Evelyn," she said, surprised, as she sat across from me. "I didn't expect to see you." "I needed to understand," I replied simply. She nodded, her hands fidgeting on the table between us. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. From the beginning." Isabella took a deep breath. "Vanessa found me 3 years ago through a DNA matching service. I'd been searching for information about my birth parents for years. One day, this woman who looked exactly like me showed up at my apartment." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "It was like looking in a mirror." "She told you she was your twin?" Isabella nodded. "She had documentation. Our original birth certificates, adoption records. Our birth mother was 16, a runaway. She couldn't keep us. Vanessa was adopted immediately by a wealthy couple from Houston. I stayed in the system, bounced between foster homes." "And she suggested this arrangement?" "Not immediately. At first she seemed genuinely interested in knowing me, understanding our connection. We met several times over the course of a month. She brought photos of her life, asked about mine." Isabella's eyes grew distant. "It was like discovering a part of myself I never knew existed." "When did it change?" "She had a charity event in New York she wanted to attend, but Nathan couldn't go. Some work deadline. She joked that I should go in her place." Isabella's voice grew quieter. "Except it wasn't really a joke. She offered me money, more money than I'd ever seen at once, to pretend to be her for a weekend." "And you agreed?" "I did. No excuses, no justifications. The simple admission hung between us." "Did you meet Raymond Garfield that weekend?" Isabella shook her head. "No, that came later. That first time was just about Vanessa wanting freedom from her responsibilities. The affair with Raymond began a few months later." "When did the switches become more frequent?" "After she met Raymond. At first it was just for days, then weekends, eventually weeks at a time." Isabella looked down at her hands. "The longer periods began after Liam had a serious asthma attack last year. Vanessa was supposed to be with him, but it was me. I was the one who rushed him to the emergency room, who stayed with him through the night." My heart clenched at the memory. The panicked call I'd received from Vanessa that night. How frightened she'd seemed, how attentive she'd been to Liam. It had been Isabella all along. "Vanessa was angry with me afterward," Isabella continued. "Not because I'd exposed our secret, but because I'd bonded with Liam in a way she never had. After that, she came home less and less." "And what about Nathan? My son loved his wife. Did that mean nothing to either of you?" Pain flashed across Isabella's face. "Nathan is a good man, kind, decent, hard-working. She hesitated. "I grew to care for him in a way I shouldn't have. It made the deception harder, not easier." "Did you ever consider telling him the truth?" "Many times. But Vanessa threatened me. She had evidence of our arrangement, recordings, texts, photos. She said she'd make sure I went to prison if I exposed her." Isabella's eyes met mine. "I was a coward. I chose security over honesty, and I'll pay for that. For the rest of my life." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her confession hanging between us. "Have you spoken to Vanessa since her arrest?" I finally asked. Isabella shook her head. "No. My lawyer says they're keeping us separated. She's fighting extradition from New York." "Of course she is," I murmured. Even now, Vanessa was putting herself first. "How is Liam?" Isabella asked, her voice breaking slightly. The question caught me off guard. Despite everything, her concern for my grandson seemed genuine. "He's confused, hurt, but he's stronger than we give him credit for." "And Nathan?" I studied her face, searching for any hint of manipulation, but found only what appeared to be genuine concern. Struggling, angry, trying to make sense of the last 3 years of his life. Isabella nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I never meant to hurt them, either of them. I know that sounds impossible given what I did, but it's the truth." "Why are you telling me all this?" I asked. Your lawyer would advise against it. Because you deserve the truth, all of you do. She wiped away a tear. And because despite how this ends for me, I care about your family, more than I had any right to. As our visiting time neared its end, I asked the question that had been haunting me. The journal I found in the guest room. Why keep such incriminating evidence? I needed to keep track of which days were mine and which were Vanessa's, to maintain consistency for Liam's sake, to remember what Vanessa had supposedly done on days when I wasn't her. She shook her head. Ironically, I was more concerned with being a consistent presence in Liam's life than his actual mother was. The guard signaled that our time was up. As I gathered my purse to leave, Isabella spoke again. Evelyn, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but please tell Liam, she paused, struggling with her words. Tell him I'm sorry for lying to him, and that the love I felt for him was never pretend. Walking out of the correctional facility into the bright Texas sunshine, I felt the weight of everything I'd learned pressing down on me. The depth of Vanessa's betrayal, the complexity of Isabella's deception, the impossible situation my son and grandson now faced. Back at home, I found Nathan sitting on the back porch, watching Liam play with his soccer ball in the yard. Daniel had gone to the airport to check on developments with Vanessa's case. How was it? Nathan asked as I sat beside him. Illuminating, I said, unsure how much to share. Did she tell you why? Why she would participate in something so cruel? I chose my words carefully. She started for the money, continued out of fear, and stayed because she grew to care about you and Liam. Nathan laughed bitterly. That's rich, caring about us while systematically deceiving us. I believe her feelings became genuine, Nathan, which doesn't excuse what she did, but what, Mom? His voice cracked with emotion. What am I supposed to do with that information? My wife abandoned us for a wealthy lover and left her identical twin to play house with us, and now you're telling me the imposter actually cares more about my son than his own mother does? How am I supposed to explain that to Liam when he grows up? I had no answer for him. We sat in silence, watching Liam chase his ball across the yard, his childish laughter a poignant contrast to the heaviness in our hearts. Daniel called, Nathan said after a while. Vanessa's being extradited tomorrow. Her lawyer couldn't block it. Will you see? Her? Nathan's jaw tightened. I have to, don't I? For closure, if nothing else, and to begin divorce proceedings. I placed my hand over his. Whatever you decide, Daniel and I are here for you and Liam. We'll get through this together. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the yard, Liam ran up to the porch, breathless and flushed from play. Dad, can we have pizza for dinner? He asked, his innocent request a reminder that life continued even in the midst of upheaval. Sure, buddy, Nathan said, ruffling his son's hair. Pizza sounds perfect. Later that night, after Liam had gone to bed, I sat alone in my living room, thinking about family, about identity, about the strange twist of fate that had brought an imposter into our lives who, in some ways, had been more authentic than the real thing. And I wondered what kind of future we could build from the fragments of truth and lies that now surrounded us. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, intimate in a way that made the proceedings feel even more personal. Nathan sat beside me in the front row, his face a carefully composed mask that couldn't quite hide the turmoil beneath. Daniel sat on his other side, his military posture ramrod straight, a pillar of strength for his brother. Vanessa entered wearing a designer pantsuit that seemed obscenely inappropriate for the occasion. Even now, facing serious criminal charges, she exuded an air of entitlement that made my blood boil. Her eyes swept the courtroom, landing briefly on Nathan before quickly looking away. Behind her, escorted by a different officer, came Isabella. The contrast between the twins was striking. Vanessa polished and defiant, Isabella subdued and remorseful. Same face, same features, yet they might as well have been strangers. The past month had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention and difficult conversations. Daniel had returned to his base but called daily. Nathan had filed for divorce and sought full custody of Liam, and I had tried my best to create a stable environment for my grandson, whose world had been turned upside down. The judge entered, and we all rose. As the proceedings began, I found myself studying Vanessa, searching for traces of the woman I thought I knew, the daughter-in-law who had charmed us all, the mother who had given me my only grandchild. But that woman had been a carefully constructed facade, and perhaps had never truly existed at all. The charges were read aloud: identity fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud related to financial transactions under false pretenses. Isabella had agreed to testify against Vanessa in exchange for a reduced sentence, a decision that clearly enraged her twin. When Isabella took the stand, her voice was steady as she recounted their arrangement in detail, how Vanessa had orchestrated the deception, how the switches had become more frequent as her affair with Raymond Garfield intensified, how she had planned to fake her death and disappear with her wealthy lover. "And what was to become of her husband and son?" the prosecutor asked. "She said they would be better off without her," Isabella replied, her eyes meeting Nathan's briefly. "That Nathan would find someone who could love him properly, and Liam—" her voice faltered. "She said Liam would barely remember her in a few years anyway." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Beside me, Nathan's hands clenched into fists. When Vanessa took the stand, she was a study in calculated charm. She admitted to the arrangement with Isabella, but painted herself as a victim of circumstance, a woman trapped in an unfulfilling marriage seeking escape. She spoke of Raymond Garfield as her true love, of their plans to build a life together. "And what about your son?" the prosecutor asked, his tone incredulous. Vanessa's mask slipped for just a moment. "I was never meant to be a mother," she said, and the cold truth of that statement seemed to surprise even her. During a recess, Nathan and I stood in the courthouse hallway, both of us needing air that wasn't heavy with lies and justifications. "I didn't know her at all, did I?" Nathan said quietly. "I don't think any of us did," I replied, squeezing his arm. "But that's on her, not you." He nodded, his gaze distant. "The strangest part is, I'm grieving for someone who never existed. The Vanessa I loved was partly a creation of Isabella's." I considered this. "Perhaps what you loved were the genuine moments, whether they came from Vanessa or Isabella." He gave a bitter laugh. "That's the problem, isn't it? The moments I cherished most from the past 3 years, Liam's birthday parties, our anniversary trips, family dinners, I have no idea who I was actually with." The truth of this struck me anew. Our memories were contaminated, impossible to trust. Which Christmas morning had been Vanessa? Which had been Isabella? Which mother had taught Liam to ride his bike, had nursed him through fevers, had read him bedtime stories? As we returned to the courtroom for the judge's ruling, I caught Isabella looking at Nathan, her expression a complex mixture of regret and something that looked unsettlingly like love. She quickly looked away when she noticed me watching. The judge's decision was swift and uncompromising. Vanessa received 5 years for fraud and conspiracy, with additional charges pending related to financial crimes uncovered during the investigation of Raymond Garfield's business dealings. Isabella received 18 months, with possibility of parole in 6, taking into account her cooperation and what the judge called mitigating personal circumstances. As Vanessa was led away, she looked back once at Nathan, her expression unreadable. Then she was gone, leaving behind the wreckage of lives she had deemed less important than her own desires. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, hungry for statements about the sensational case of the twin deception. Nathan's lawyer handled the press while we slipped out a side exit, eager to return to the privacy of my home, where Liam was waiting with his babysitter. That evening, as I prepared dinner, I overheard Nathan on the phone with Daniel, discussing the day's events. Liam played with Legos on the living room floor, building elaborate structures with focused determination. "Dad?" he asked when Nathan hung up. "Is Mom coming home now?" Nathan sat beside his son, choosing his words carefully. "No, buddy. Remember we talked about this. Mom did some things that were wrong, and she has to take responsibility for them." Liam nodded solemnly. "And Isabella? Is she in trouble too?" "Yes, but not for as long. She was nicer to me than Mom," Liam said matter-of-factly, returning to his Legos. "She remembered that I don't like crusts on my sandwiches." The simple observation broke my heart. Out of the mouths of babes came the most devastating truths, that a stranger pretending to be his mother had shown more genuine care than the real thing. Later, after Liam was asleep, Nathan and I sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, the Texas night warm around us. "What now?" I asked. Nathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Divorce proceedings are underway. Full custody shouldn't be an issue given the circumstances." He took a sip of his wine. "We'll sell the house. Too many memories there." Find somewhere new to start over. You'll stay in Austin? Yes. Liam needs stability, and you and Daniel are here. His school, his friends. He looked out into the darkness. I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about loving the genuine moments regardless of who they came from. I waited, sensing he needed to work through his thoughts. The thing is, Mom, I think I might have fallen in love with Isabella without realizing it. Not the version of her pretending to be Vanessa, but the actual person beneath the deception. That's understandable, I said carefully. In many ways, she became the wife and mother your family needed, which is so messed up I can barely process it, he said with a hollow laugh. I'm angry with her for the deception, but grateful for how she cared for Liam. I feel betrayed, but also, I miss her. The real her. Is that insane? It's human, I replied. None of us expected to be in this situation. There's no roadmap for how to feel. Nathan nodded, taking another sip of wine. Liam asks about her. Not Vanessa, Isabella. He knows the difference now, looking back. I remembered Isabella's parting words to me in the visitor's room. Tell him the love I felt for him was never pretend. What will you tell him? Nathan looked at me, his eyes reflecting the porch light. The truth, I suppose, as much as he can understand. That people sometimes make bad choices for complicated reasons. That loving someone doesn't always mean you've made the right decisions. As we sat in contemplative silence, I thought about the strange, tangled web of love and deception our family had been caught in, and I wondered what shape our future would take, now that the truth had finally been revealed. 3 years later, spring in Austin painted my neighborhood in vibrant colors. Bluebonnets lined the sidewalks, and the peach tree in my backyard was heavy with blossoms. I stood in my kitchen, watching through the window, as Liam, now 10, practiced soccer drills in the yard, his movements confident and precise. So much had changed since that fateful night when Daniel's phone call had revealed the impossible truth. Yet somehow, we had found our way through the darkness to a new kind of light. The doorbell rang and I wiped my hands on a dish towel before answering. Isabella stood on my porch, holding a small potted plant. Her hair was shorter now, her style distinct from Vanessa's, a conscious choice to establish her own identity. Right on time, I said, stepping back to let her in. Nathan just texted that he's running a few minutes. Late, meeting with a client. No rush, she replied, handing me the plant. African violet. I remembered you mentioned wanting one. Thank you. I placed it on the hall table. Liam's in the backyard if you want to say hello. He's been practicing that new kick you showed him. She nodded, a smile lighting her face. I'll just go check on his form. I watched as she went through the house and out. The back door. Liam looked up, his face breaking into a wide grin as he ran to hug her. Their easy affection still surprised me sometimes, though perhaps it shouldn't. Despite everything, the bond between them had been real. Isabella had served 8 months of her 18-month sentence before being released on parole. The first year after her release had been tentative, awkward. Nathan had arranged supervised visits with Liam, who had never stopped asking about her. Gradually, as wounds began to heal and trust cautiously rebuilt, those visits became more regular. Vanessa, meanwhile, remained in prison, refusing all contact with Nathan and showing no interest in Liam. The divorce had been finalized during her first year of incarceration. Raymond Garfield, facing his own legal troubles for financial crimes, had cut all ties with her. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. The woman who had committed the greater betrayal, who had been willing to abandon her family without a backward glance, was now herself abandoned. Meanwhile, the woman who had perpetrated the deception out of desperation and then misplaced loyalty was slowly, carefully being integrated back into our lives. The front door opened and Nathan walked in, briefcase in hand, looking tired but content after a day at his architectural firm. Sorry I'm late, he said, kissing my cheek. Client couldn't make up his mind about the roofline? Isabella's out back with Liam, I told him. He nodded, setting down his briefcase and loosening his tie. How is she today? Good. Brought me a plant. Nathan smiled. Always thoughtful. The relationship between my son and Isabella defied simple categorization. After her release, they had begun a careful friendship, bound by their shared love for Liam and the strange intimacy of their past. That friendship had gradually evolved into something more complex. Not quite romance, not merely friendship, but something uniquely their own. They were taking it slowly, both acutely aware of the unusual circumstances, that had brought them together and the potential complications of their connection. But watching them together, I sometimes caught glimpses of something genuine and hopeful taking root. "Dinner's almost ready," I said. "I made lasagna." "Liam's favorite." Nathan smiled. "You spoil him. That's what grandmothers are for." As I set the table, I reflected on the strange journey that had led us here. The betrayal that had shattered our family had also, paradoxically, created space for something new to grow from the fragments. Daniel joined us for dinner, having driven in from his base for the weekend. The 5 of us gathered around my dining table, myself, my 2 sons, my grandson, and Isabella. An unconventional family, perhaps, but a family nonetheless. After dinner, as Nathan and Isabella washed dishes side by side in the kitchen, their conversation punctuated by occasional laughter, Daniel joined me on the back porch. "They seem good together," he observed, nodding toward the kitchen window. "They're finding their way," I agreed. "Never thought we'd end up here when I made that phone call from the airport," he mused. I thought back to that moment, the shock, the confusion, the beginning of the unraveling. Life takes unexpected turns. "Speaking of which," Daniel said, "I got my transfer approved. I'll be stationed in Austin permanently starting next month." "That's wonderful news," I said, genuinely delighted. "Liam will be thrilled to have his uncle around more." Inside, we could hear Liam chattering excitedly to Nathan and Isabella about his upcoming science fair project. The sound of their combined laughter drifted out to us on the evening air. "You know what's strange?" Daniel said after a moment. "If Vanessa hadn't been so selfish, if she hadn't brought Isabella into our lives in such a deceptive way, we might never have known what we were missing." I considered this. Sometimes the wrong path leads to the right destination. Later that evening, as everyone prepared to leave, I stood in the doorway watching as Nathan helped Liam into the car while Isabella adjusted his soccer gear in the trunk. They had the easy coordination of people who had learned to move around each other with comfortable familiarity. "See you Sunday for lunch, Mom," Nathan asked, hugging me goodbye. "I'll be here," I promised. "Isabella, you're welcome too, of course." She smiled, the expression transforming her face in a way that emphasized how different she looked from Vanessa now. "I'd like that. Thank you, Evelyn." As their car pulled away, I thought about the nature of truth and deception, about how the lines between them could blur in unexpected ways. Isabella had entered our lives through a lie but had ultimately brought an authenticity that had been missing. Vanessa had presented a perfect facade that had hidden a hollow core. Perhaps the most profound truth I had learned from this ordeal was that genuine connection, the kind that sustains us through life's trials, can't be fabricated or feigned. It must be built on honesty, nurtured with compassion, and strengthened through shared adversity. Inside my house, I picked up the African violet Isabella had brought, placing it on the kitchen windowsill where it would catch the morning light. Like our unconventional family, it would need care and attention to flourish. But with patience and understanding, even the most unlikely beginnings could blossom into something beautiful. In the quiet of my home, surrounded by memories both painful and precious, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We had weathered the storm of betrayal and emerged, not unscathed, but somehow stronger in our broken places. And in that strength I found hope for the future, a future none of us could have imagined, but one we were now creating together, one honest moment at a time.